Yeah, I mean, I'm going to touch on 2 points here. You mentioned genetics, but again, I have another video, guys, if you're watching, like another half an hour, 45-minute video on genetics, because people need to understand what we mean by, yes, genetics plays a role in your physique, absolutely. But what do we mean by that? It's people assume that genetics means that I don't do anything and I just gain weight. It doesn't mean that, right? The only people who don't have any control, it's about 1 or 3%. They have homozygous genes, and they come with other forms of retardation. They'll have maybe Down syndrome, or they'll have loss of function, and it's those that's the 1 to 3%. The rest of the people, when it talks about genetics, it means yes, it's a bit more harder in terms of I'm a genetically a fatty, straight up. You know why? I have high appetite. So I have a big appetite. So people who are genetically predisposed to gaining weight, they tend to have higher reward centers, meaning they get sometimes they might identify themselves as foodies. They get a much more enjoyment and pleasure from food. Number one. They have bigger appetites. And they tend to have higher ghrelin as well, so they feel more hungry more often. They feel more hungry more often, then their appetites are bigger, and they tend to get a lot of reward from food. And an easy way to identify if you do have that genetic is, if you go training, when you come back, do you feel like treating yourself to food?
Yeah. I usually do, yeah.
Yeah, if normally people who tend to have genetics predisposed to gaining weight, they tend to reward themselves with food.
After training.
A lot of time, and not just with training. They tend to often reward themselves with food, because somebody who's genetically gifted, I would say, who doesn't have this issue with obesity, they don't tend to get a lot of pleasure from food. They see food as almost as a chore.
Functional. They eat enough to survive.